Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries for the final installment of my 30 inks 30 days challenge that I was doing for April of 2025. So I figured I would show you the full flip through of this little book here, which is a 96-page A5 notebook from Wonderland 222. It has original Tomoegawa Tomoe paper in it that is 52 GSM. And I picked a random sample of inks from the samples in my collection. And I have to say I had some winners and I had some definite losers. So yeah, let's just go through this really quick. This is pretty much the layout of all of the inks that I put in pens with their names and pen combinations. So like the name of the ink and the pen combination. And I just did the little squiggle here with the pen, wrote out the day that it was supposed to correspond to. And yeah, I think this is a really good reference landing page for me, especially because I was a little bit silly. I was a little silly Billy and didn't put the names of the pens and inks on the actual pages that I was doing the swatches of. So I at least have this for reference. I think for my next 30 inks, 30 days, I will be really vigilant about putting my pens and ink names on the actual swatch page too, so that way I don't have to like flip back and forth or just try to go based off of memory. But yeah, anyways, day one, I kind of already did the first section of this, but we're just going to flip front to back. This was a pretty decent ink. I'm not going to say the names of the pens and ink pairings for the first few days here, but I figured it would be nice to kind of see all of them together. I was really enjoying using my B1 Speedball nib here for the kind of headings, and then I was using a number 4 paintbrush for the paintbrush swatch up here, and then at the bottom I was using a brass Kakimori dip nib to do the kind of swipe and then the little bit of a thicker writing. And I think that was a really good way for me to see how the ink behaves using different tools. And then also having the full written page or partially written page with the pen itself and the Zentangle doodle. I will say I did not do the Zentangle doodle for the third part of this series, the third part of this challenge, and that is primarily because I just did not have time or honestly the patience to sit down and doodle for every single day, something that was that structured. I really enjoyed it for some of the days, and then there were other days where it was like I was forcing myself to work on it and I just did not enjoy it, so I just decided to not continue it for this last little segment of days. I think in the future I'd probably do like maybe one every now and then. I wouldn't try to commit to doing one every single day just because I think they're a bit intensive with the designs, and I know they're meant to be like therapeutic and meditative, and they are in a way. It's just not, it just didn't work for me really. So day 21 is the last day that I did a Zentangle. And with that, we're pretty much on the third part of the inks. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the pens and inks for this section. So the first one here for day 21, I used a Pilot Kakuno, part of the Madoromi series. I think that's how you say it. This is just in the brown color. This has a medium lovely little smiley face nib on it, and this was inked up with Sailor Kobe's Ginza Gold Sepia, and this was nice. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It worked really great. These pens are fantastic writers, no matter if you're at your beginner stages or your end stages. They're great purse pens, or a pen to throw in your bag. They're just really great little workhorses, and I love the way they write, and it seems like no matter what I put in them, they actually do okay. Even with some of the inks that I struggled with this challenge, the ink still did okay. But anyways, great writer, 8 out of 10. The only thing that docked a couple of points for me was the color. I think it was a little too yellow for me. I do like it as a brown color and I'll use it, but it's not something I would probably seek more of, just because I have other inks that I think I like a bit more that would be in this kind of color family. Then for day 22, as you can see, Nose and Tangle is where this started here. But this one I had inked up in my 𝗦𝗫𝗍𝗍𝗍 Eco. This is the white rose gold model. This has a fine nib. And I never thought I would say this, but I think the fine 𝗦𝗫𝗍𝗍 nibs are starting to become my favorite over the extra fine. I never saw that happening. Yeah, I loved this combo. This was inked up with Robert Oster's Astorquiza Rot. Gorgeous, ruddy brown red color, brick red, maroon in a way. I just love how it looks kind of like, I don't know, this is going to sound gross, but like dried blood on the page. It just has kind of like a crusty look to it, and that sounds terrible. Wow. But this was really great to write with. It flowed really well. It wrote really well. Really good combination. I don't know why, but I love putting red inks in my 𝗦𝗫𝗍𝗍s because of the red finials. I just feel like it just works no matter what the color is. I can always put a red ink in them and they do okay. But yeah, this is really good combination. 8 out of 10 again. I think I just docked it a couple of points because I don't really write with red all that often. It's not a color I typically reach for. So that's probably the only reason that happened. Then we had day 23, which this was such a disappointing day. Oh my gosh. The 23rd is actually my birthday, so I was celebrating my birthday this day, and I decided to ink up this gorgeous pen from Just Turnings. This is his 𝗦𝗫𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 model. It's basically the deluxe pen model, but it's a 𝗦𝗫𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 on his naming system because of its resin is made by him. So this is a resin made from Steven and his wife. This is the almost translucent Aussie Abalone. And the end caps here, I believe, are pearl teal or something like that. I don't remember, and I know I wrote it down somewhere, but I wanted to put a teal ink in this because I thought it would look beautiful. Like, look at that. It's such a great, like, they just match beautifully, right? So the ink that I chose for this was Monteverde's Iced Cookie. And I've had good success with this ink before, and I don't know if something happened to my sample or if, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But this ink was so unbelievably wet that it was just fire hosing out of this pen, which had a medium nib in it. And it was not a fun time. It bled through the Sanson paper, which sucked. It even feathered in some places on this paper, which really sucks. So I really feel like maybe I did something to my sample, or something happened to the ink chemistry that changed it a little bit, because I do not remember this being this wet last time I used it. So I don't know. But yeah, this one I gave 4 out of 10 because I was just not having a good time dealing with the paper situation and the way the ink was behaving on the paper. Writing experience wise though, this pen is beautiful. It's a gem to hold. I love the construction of these pens. Steven does a fantastic job, and for if you're running another pen with a nice 𝗦𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 nib in it, great choice. Excellent choice. Anyways, 4 out of 10, not the finest moment, primarily because the ink just misbehaved so much on everything else. Then we had day 24, and this is kind of like, the redemption. I really wanted a nice teal color. Here is the teal color. So this is Monteverde's DC Supershow Teal. And I decided to put this into my Leonardo Momento Zero Grande 2.0 in the Sunflower colorway with the gold trim. I love this Leonardo. It's not my favorite Leonardo, but it's definitely probably like top 2. It's just such a great, it's a happy pen for me. It's just a happy pen. I don't know. I love the ink window. I love the gold trim. I love the size. It's just a beautiful construction of a pen. It's a piston fill. Love this. And putting it with this pen, or this ink, I had a really good time. I gave this a 7 out of 10 primarily because I just didn't like the flow. I feel like with the extra fine nib that's on this pen, it was just a little too, I don't know, it just didn't wow me. It didn't hit the spot, I guess. But yeah, this was nice. I liked the combination. I would ink it up again, but it's not my favorite. I would say over the 2 teals that I did one day after the other, I think I prefer the one that's a little bit more green leaning. Big surprise. But I'm still happy I have a more cool toned teal here and then a more warm toned teal. I think it still behaved beautifully. And yeah, I'm gonna move on. Okay, then we had another Leonardo, and this one is my favorite Leonardo right now. And this is the Leonardo Momento Zero in the golden abalone. This was an Atlas Stationers exclusive. This has the rose gold trim on it. It is just stunning. I love looking at this pen. I just could get lost in the dreaminess of this pen. Anyways, this has a fine nib on it, and I decided to ink this up with Ferris Press's Wonderland of Coral. And surprisingly, this was a decent match. I don't know how well the camera's going to pull it off, but there's little hints of kind of this rose gold coppery shimmer or iridescence in the pen resin, and this ink pulled that through beautifully. So I love the match. The only thing I had issues with this ink is that it was dry in this pen. Not really surprising. Most of the Ferris press inks that I use do have a bit of a dryness to them, but this one was just kind of like, I want more. Like, I want you to flow out of this pen because you're so good at it. And like, yeah, I was a little frustrated. So I gave it average. It was 5 out of 10. I wanted more. I definitely think I might look for another ink similar to this color, or even add some white lightning to this one and see if I can get the flow to improve a little bit. It's just, yeah, but I do love the color. I just wish it flowed a bit better with this pen. Then we had day 26. This was another one of my TWSBIs. This is the TWSBI TWSBI Cream. Yeah, TWSBI Cream with the rose gold trim again. And again, a red ink in a TWSBI, big surprise. This has Document Red by DeAtramentis in it. This was nice. I do like the Document inks by DeAtramentis. I think they work well, especially for a waterproof ink. If you're curious at how waterproof they are, here is a water pen. They're pretty darn waterproof. I will say they're not as waterproof as some of the other inks I have tried recently. I am kind of excited to play around with those more. Diamine Forever inks. Anyways, but this combination was really nice. It wrote great. I think it's a good red color, especially if you want something that's a bit more waterproof, or water resistant, I should say. Yeah, I can't complain. This has an extra fine nib in it. It behaved well. It wrote well. It's an okay combination. I gave it a 7 out of 10 because I wasn't wowed, and it's a classic red color. I also don't write with red that often, so yeah, 7 out of 10. Then we had day 27, and this was an ultimate disappointment. So I really think I'm probably going to sell this pen at this point. I've not had a good experience the last couple of times I've used it. Not because it's a bad pen. Like, there is nothing wrong with the pen. It's just, I just don't think it's for me anymore. I originally had it when I really liked the extra fine nibs, and I think I have grown past that, and I think I'm outgrowing this pen, sadly. This is the KWZ Sport in the Macchiato colorway. It has a fine nib on it, which is pretty commonly known amongst KWZ users that the fine nibs and some of their nibs in general just have really tight tines, so they flow a little bit dry. And this one flows really dry. I don't know. I'm gonna give it one more shot. I'm gonna see if I can clean it really, really good with like some pen flush and maybe just soak it a little bit and get some of the gunk out. Maybe that's what's causing it to be so dry. I don't know. But I had KWZ's Cappuccino in this, and I love this ink. I have used this ink before in a Banu. I've used this ink before, I'm pretty sure, in a Pilot pen. This is a great ink. It's a great brown. It's warm. It's yellow based. It has great shading. I like the smell of KWZ inks just because it's like a warm cup of vanilla coffee. I know it's not for everybody, but I enjoy it. And yeah, this was such a disappointment. I wanted it to behave so much better than it did, and all I got was this dry, scratchy feeling with this pen. It's just a disappointment. 3 out of 10, not good. Yeah, I don't think I can say much else other than it was just a disappointment. Moving on, then we had day 28, and this was like the KWZ redemption. So I decided to ink up another one of my KWZ pens. This is the KWZ Sport in Smooth Sage, and this one has a broad nib in it, which I think is my second favorite. I don't know, the medium is probably my ultimate favorite KWZ nib. But anyways, this has Papery Plume's The Faceless Lady in it. Can we just appreciate the shimmer over the whole page? Come on, like, that's amazing. I was so thrilled that the shimmer was so consistent through all of the writing with this. 9 out of 10. The color match is really nice. It's like a teal pen with this kind of like dusty blue teal color with this silver shimmer. I think if I had a silver clip on this, I'd be happier because I got silver trim up here and a silver nib. I don't know if this was a marriage now, but I really enjoyed this pairing together. This was so beautiful. Yeah, I think the only thing that had me dock it a point was just that it's a broad nib, and the KWZ broad can be really broad sometimes, so when I'm writing really small, it's kind of challenging, but that's really the only thing I think that stopped me from making this a 10 out of 10. I really enjoy this combination. And then for day 29, this was kind of like another one of those inks that I don't know, I feel like it's a bit of a letdown, but not really. I don't know. This is Monteverde's Giraffe, and I'm going to compare it to another ink that I already did for this challenge. But anyways, I had this inked up in my River City Pen Company's Arlington model extra long, and this is in the Copper Cauldron colorway. This pen is massive. That is part of why I gave it the score that it does have, but also because this ink is pretty much just the lower quality version of another ink that I did, which let me get to it. Okay, so here we have day 15. This was Ancient Copper by Diamine, and then here we have Monteverde's Giraffe. So I'm just gonna do that. The colors are very similar. I'd say Ancient Copper is slightly more orange, and the Giraffe is slightly more red, but in writing, they look very, very close together. Monteverde's Giraffe just is lackluster compared to Ancient Copper. And I think that's what was my struggle with this, is I was still thinking about this ink with the Ancient Copper and the Banu that I put it in. And this ink just wasn't giving me that same power that this was giving me. So I gave it a 6 out of 10 just because the ink was lacking oomph. But also, like I said, this pen is just huge for me, and I have such mixed feelings because I love the look of this pen. I love looking at all of the different orange and blacks and silvers, and it just looks like a little smoky fire. It's so cool, but the grip section is so challenging for me to hold for a long period of time because it really separates my fingers here. So I'm super tempted to sell this. I don't know. I'm so torn because I really love the look of it, but it's just, I think it's just too big for me. So I don't know. If you're interested, I guess send me a message. Anyways, but this combination was a 6 out of 10. It was okay. I was so underwhelmed with the ink, and then the fact that the pen is kind of a challenge for me to write with because of its size just kind of added to the despair in a way. Not that it's despair, but yeah, it just didn't win. It just didn't win me over. Anyways, and then the final pen, which I'm just, yes. This was my Laban 325 in Cambridge. I love this pen. I love this pen. The weight, the classic look, yes. The simplistic gold nib with the gold trim. I just want to go sign a bunch of important documents with this pen. This is just beautiful. Anyways, I inked this up with Pelikan Edelstein's Smoky Quartz, and just a moment of silence for the beauty of these two paired together. Just so perfect. I only gave this a 9 out of 10. I was going to give it a 10 out of 10. But the longer I wrote with it, the more I was kind of thinking of another pen that I did give a 10 out of 10 to, and that was this pen here. This was my Just Turnings dark brown diamond cast, and this had Kaweco's caramel brown in it. This was a 10 out of 10. And I kept thinking, like, I can't have a 10 out of 10 and then this be also a 10 out of 10, because then I have to feel like one has to be an 11 out of 10, which I guess they could be, but I settled for giving the Laban a 9 out of 10. We'll say 9.5 out of 10, if you will. I just really loved this pairing, but the ink was slightly drier than the Kaweco one, so that's why I docked it 1 point, or half point. Anyways, love this pen, love the combination, definitely going to keep writing with it for a bit. Really, really happy with my purchase with this pen. Then, something that I decided to do for my challenge here is to rank my top 7 and my bottom 7 pens that I did. So I'm going to zoom you guys in for this because I had to smoosh it all onto this page, and the bleed through, or I should say the shadowing mainly from this other page, did not help with my writing. So let me zoom you in really quick. Okay, so I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to read the flops, but I will tell you as I go for sure. So my number one favorite ink was on day 18, and that was Kaweco's Caramel Brown with the Just Turnings dark brown diamond cast pen, which had the Imperial nib on it from Kirkspear. Such a fantastic nib. Highly recommend if you definitely want a good variation in your pen nibs. Then for my least favorite ink and pen pairing, I should say, this was on day, I can't even read it. I think it was day 18. Day 14. Day 14. This is the Colorverse Cat's Eye Nebula, and I put this in a Lamy Safari with a fine nib first, and then I changed it to a stub nib, and it still sucked. It still sucked. And then I put White Lightning in it, and it still sucked. This was just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. So yeah, bottom for sure. My number two favorite was my Le Bon, like I just mentioned. I'm still obsessed with that pen. And then my number two flop was the Sweet Honeydew by Ferris Press. As you can see, it is pretty much completely illegible, only meant for artistry for me on this one. It's just too light. Surprisingly, though, for my number three slots, my number three favorite was actually a Van Diemen's ink called Maestro. It's just this perfect acid green color, and it had just enough shading that it was super fun to write with. I used it all month long in April, actually. I kind of made it my April color, oddly enough. And I know this ink color isn't really favored by many, but I am one of those people that really like the ugly greens for some reason. But yeah, this was really, really good. I had this in my Esterbrook SD Rainforest. It was a really great match too. I really enjoyed this. For my third flop, was also an Esterbrook SD though. So this was an Esterbrook SD Sea Glass with an extra fine nib, and I inked this up with Waringall's Wendy Darling. As you can see, it's another ink that is very illegible in writing. I do think I kind of shot myself in the foot with this one though, because I put a super light ink in an extra fine nibbed pen. Probably going to try to give that ink another shot because the ink is absolutely gorgeous in swatches and painting. So maybe if I get it in the right pen, I will get a lot of the beautiful shades to come through in something else. Then for my number four here, I have my Bone Crusher Studios Velma and Stellar Dust with the Andrew Williams Pompadour Cotinga Burgundy. This was a great writer. It was super smooth. The ink payoff was beautiful. It behaved really well. No complaints. And then for my number four flop, again, another ink that was pretty illegible. But this one, I almost didn't want to put it in here because it's a really nice pen that I love, and the ink is called Dandelion. It was Inkybara's Dandelion. I had this in my Lamy 2000 Marcolon with an extra fine 14 karat nib. Writes like a dream, but the color is just a little too light for me, a little too illegible. And I actually used up pretty much everything in that sample for this, so sadly, no painting for this one, but I think if I were to get any more, it would be for painting. Then for my number five slots, my favorites here were going to be the Birmingham Pen Company's Rosewood Twinkle with my Stub 1.1 Yovo nib and my Just Turnings Copper Rose pen. So freaking good. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I wrote it completely dry. And then I have my flop on this other side, which was another gold nibbed pen. This was my Pilot E95S with the medium 14K nib on it, and I had this with Waringall's chalk, and I just really had a hard time with this ink. The shimmer never came through like I wanted, and the color was just a little too soft, I think, for what I was really looking for. So yeah, kind of a flop for me, but the pen I love. Then for number sixes, we had, again, that Kaweco Sport and Smooth Sage with the Papery Plumes The Faceless Lady. So good. I loved. And then for my flop on the opposite side was the other Kaweco, so Kaweco Macchiato with the KWZ Cappuccino. Just this nib is just too fine. The tines are just too tight. And then for my bottom here, my favorite bottom, my favorite, but like favorite list, but on the bottom, yeah, is my Bennu Euphoria Earl Grey with the Diamond Ancient Copper. I really just enjoyed playing with those two together. I feel like they're a really fun match together. And then for my number 7 flop is that ink that was just bleeding so much, and that is Monteverde's Iced Cookie. I actually pushed this one above another one of the lighter inks, which was Lady Rose by Ferris Press, just because the behavior of this ink was just so yeah, it just didn't do what I wanted. So it kind of pushed out an ink that behaved a bit better and was still pretty illegible. Anyways, let's look at all of the swatches together. For the final part of this challenge, I decided to put all of the inks together in a big swatch page just because I know in swatches our inks look a lot different than they do in writing. Or I shouldn't say a lot different, but some of them do appear very different. But in swatches, you can kind of see how these inks are similar. And I was really surprised about all of the browns that I chose. So starting over here, we had Caramel Brown by KWZ, and then we had Sailor Kobe Ginza Gold Sepia, KWZ Cappuccino, and Smoky Quartz by Pelikan Edelstein. All of these are like the same color almost, which was really surprising to me. Especially the Caramel Brown Cappuccino and Ginza Gold Sepia. All three of these in writing look almost identical. I'd say the KWZ Cappuccino is a little bit more yellow, but I was just really surprised that all of those were so close together. Same thing for some of my reds here. So my Ancient Copper and Giraffe are really similar. My DeAtramentis Document Red and my Cherry Red and my Brilliant Red were all a bit more brighter reds that I really wasn't anticipating them all to look so similar. And then even some of my greens here, like my Green with Curiosity by Ferris and Spruce County Post by Ferris. And then again, the two teals. I was just really shocked at how similar these all looked. Even my Papery Plume, the Faceless Lady with the Ferris Bathurst Blue Denim, I feel like those two are really similar too. So all this to say, going through a bunch of random ink samples in my collection, I'm kind of shocked to see how many that I pulled out that were so similar, but also shocked to see how different they are in the writing, or how differently they behaved, I should say, in the writing, because that really does make a difference as like what ink you put in what pen can change the way that ink behaves. All in all, I'm very happy with the results of my study here, I guess, with all of the different colors I picked and doing all the different methods of swatching. I think, again, for my next 30 inks, 30 days, I will probably skip on the Zentangle or maybe do one whenever I feel like it, because I think just forcing myself or having the assumption to do one every single day was just getting a little too tedious for me, and I don't want to have that kind of pressure on myself because I have a little bit too much going on for that right now. But yeah, overall, again, very happy with this, and I'm kind of glad I am finally wrapping this up because I know I'm a little bit late to that game. Anyways, I wish you all the best. I would love to hear about your 30 inks, 30 days. If you did it for the month of April, are you going to do it for the month of June? I would love to hear all about it. Or if you wanted to throw in the comments what your favorite ink pen pairing that I did during this whole challenge, I'd love to hear that too, because I feel like some of these were real winners, and I'd love to see, I guess, what you guys think about this as well. But yeah, be blessed. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.